Hey, happy birthday, Dylan. We got Kashi in the house. What's going on, Kashi? Hey, Setti.
Hey, Rich, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
So, you guys had some big news today.
Yeah, yeah, I think things are starting to come along nicely. It's been a pretty interesting ride over the last little while, that's for sure. Um, and maybe before we even get started, one thing I absolutely want to do is um, really send a big shout out to the whole team at TAT, especially all the guys down in Vegas, because I'm telling you that they've been working 18-hour days, two and a half shifts a day, like round the clock to kind of get this product ready for the market, off to our manufacturer. And I mean, Joe and his team there have just done a tremendous job. So I just wanted to make sure that we kind of gave them the appropriate applause for all the hard work, because I tell you, even having been in a big tobacco company, going from sort of concept to a product in market in the time frame that we've done is unheard of. And I just think it's been a tremendous effort. So I guess I wanted to say thanks.
Now, there's been a lot of people talking about the fact that we had that launch date of November 27th, and now we here are in December 17th,
Mhm.
and there are people that are having videos circulating now, which we were playing some videos of people that are smoking the tat. There is a store locator on your website with 10 locations on the website.
Yeah,
Um, pretty impressive. You guys now have 10 locations that you are selling tat in. Is that correct?
I think we got a few more than that. I mean, that's something that we're going to be updating constantly over the next coming days. So we expect to have many dozens of stores online over the next little while. And I think, again, just kind of getting it out in this sort of rollout as quickly as possible. I think we've been doing an excellent job um, getting it on the shelves. And now I think especially that we've had, some video testimonials from actual consumers. Um, I mean, it's great to see, especially, when they try it for the first time and they're able to say, wow, if I didn't know this wasn't tobacco, I'd have no idea this wasn't tobacco. So, I mean, that's kind of the best response you can get and that's really what we've been preaching from the beginning, is that we've got a product that is going to be indistinguishable from a cigarette. And I think for a lot of smokers, knowing that it doesn't have nicotine and that we can offer it at a price point that is substantially less than any cigarette on the market is really going to be a very compelling value proposition for them.
It's very exciting, and to see people actually enjoying them, saying, yeah, this is smooth, I like this.
Yeah.
It's affordable, they like it, they like it. And I tried it and I liked it, and I had other friends who tried it and they liked it. So the sky's the limit, really. I mean, you said it yourself that there are people from like over 90 countries that have reached out to you that are interested in this product. So now that you guys are actually in stores and you guys have had your first orders, let's clear up some of the confusion some people had, because I think when you did your first order of 150,000,
Yeah.
that was paid. That wasn't like you were waiting for any, that was paid, and then that goes to the stores to
Yeah.
distribute and put on the shelves, correct?
Exactly. Right. So, I mean, I think I explained this once a while ago. I mean, we've done a few of these talks, which I always enjoy, by the way. Um, but there's a difference between our customer and our consumer, right? Our customer, the people that we actually sell the product to and collect money from, are the wholesalers, distributors, right? So when we say that we've shipped product out to wholesalers, that means we've gotten paid by the wholesalers. We don't have to wait for the wholesaler to then break it down, sell it to the retailer, and then for the retailer to break it down further and sell it to the consumer, right? So when we ship, we get paid from the wholesaler. Now, when it gets down to the retail point, our consumer is different than our customer. Our consumer is the smoker who comes into the convenience store to buy it off the shelf. And those are the people that we do a lot of our marketing efforts towards, so that we can help educate them on the product and why they might otherwise consider it as a viable alternative to combustible cigarettes. And I think that was a key point to distinguish. Every now and again, I sort of read the message boards too, right? So just to kind of see what people say, how they understand the story, if there's anything that I might be able to go on and help clarify. And I'm not going to go on the message boards and just do it there. So I mean, I'll find certain forums and we'll do it through that way. But I did notice that there was a bit of, at least unintended confusion, because I think they thought that, okay, we ship it to the wholesaler and then we've got to wait for the wholesaler to send it to the retailer, and then we got to wait for the retailer to sell it to the consumer before we actually realize any revenue. And that's not the case. We're post revenue today. We were post revenue effectively Friday. I mean, when we shipped, we collect, and now, you know, we're sort of off to the races, which I think is a really exciting time.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's your first time the company's ever had revenue coming through the door. Obviously, you guys have raised a lot of money, so you guys have had no problems there, which is obviously a good sign as well. So you guys have a lot of money behind you. You guys have runway. There's no financial problems with the company. The company's financially strong.
I would say so, yes. You know, it's again, it's a real testament to the team, right? Because it's with all of the contributions of everybody involved that we're able to kind of craft this product and the story behind it and help communicate it in an effective way to investors. And for those that are interested in sort of investing in a company like this, I think that we've got a product that's going to be second to none. So, you know, being able to communicate that value proposition both to our consumers and, you know, our investors and potential future investors, I think is really important. And you know, given the amount of money that we've raised, it just helps us accelerate sort of the entire process, which is exciting, right? I mean, now that we've got product in market, there's a lot of things that we want to go out and do in terms of building out, you know, bigger infrastructure or hiring the right people. You know, I think that leap of faith becomes a lot smaller now, because initially it's, all right, are you going to be able to make a product? I mean, if I kind of look back to where we started, or when I started here, or even when Joe started it earlier this year, I mean, there was this idea of creating, all right, a hemp cigarette that is going to compete with tobacco. Okay. And then we went through some formulation and came up with a product. You know, and you know, I ended up coming up onto the team, and we sort of took a look at all the things that we had, and we went through a really fast sprint between, all right, we've got a product, I think we can make some tweaks on the formulation, and in doing so, we were able to get a patent. Then we looked at the packaging. I think we could augment the packaging to something that would be a little bit more reflective of what tobacco smokers would look for, and we did that too. And then we had to get a contract manufacturer on board, and we did that. And then we had to figure out what state we were going to launch in, and we did that. And then we had to go and get distribution and get the margins right, and we did that. And then we had to go and raise capital, and we did that, and got, you know, a great strategic investor along the way as well. And then we had to go and create the right marketing campaign and start distributing it and socializing it through Ohio, and we did that. You know, and all of it sort of culminates to this point where you finally are able to see pictures of this product on the shelf. I mean, if it weren't for COVID, I would have been down there myself. But it's been just an extraordinary ride, and I think that we've done a considerable amount of really great work in a very short period of time. So I think the future that we have is bright, and you know, I'm excited to sort of conclude the year with this great milestone and really kick off 2021, I think, on a high note.
So let's speak about 2021. So congratulations on your rapid move from CEO, and we've talked about this, just an idea, a concept, to a real product that's now on the shelves that people are smoking. So congratulations. That's like, I think in record time, you're talking about like 4 months you've been here?
Yeah.
Well, 4 months.
A tobacco company, if you looked at like an Altria or Philip Morris or JTI or anything like that, I mean, if they had an idea for launching a new cigarette, don't forget, they've got a massive infrastructure and they know how to make a cigarette, right?
Yeah, of course.
If they want to launch a new brand of cigarette, it'll take them at least 12 months.
Yeah, and you guys did it in
That
just,
infrastructure, and we did it in 4.
yeah, and the funny part is a lot of people were really panicking. There was literally panic, and you know, I joke around and I got my hat and it says, you know, Rich TV Live, don't panic. And I always tell people, like, you know, guys, you don't need to panic. You know what I mean? Like with Rich TV Live, you don't need to panic. We're gonna help you guys. We're gonna identify the early stage opportunities, right? Like the companies that you know, from day one, I always believed that TAAT had the chance to do it. Now, there's a lot of companies that say they're going to do great things and they're not able to execute.
Mhm.
Where I find you guys have been extremely successful is essentially executing on everything you said you would do.
Right. And again, I mean,
And
it's a
that's
testament
and
to the
that
team. I mean, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's not a single person. I mean, it's really just a collection of great people working towards a common goal and kind of keeping that vision in mind as you sort of march forward. And you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days, and um, you know, you just never lose sight of the point that you want to hit. And when you got a group of people like that, I mean, you're going to keep hitting. Now, you know, I also think it's important when you take a look at a category like this, you know, whether it's a fast moving consumer good or consumer packaged good, um, you know, these things ultimately take time, right? It's not a pull on a slot machine, right? You're not just going to cash out overnight. I mean, these are things that take a lot of time, effort, work, but as you sort of build, you're constantly creating more and more value for the organization and the shareholders. And I think that's what ultimately we want to be able to do and demonstrate to the market, that when we say we're going to do something, we're going to do it. And I think we've been able to kind of showcase that over the last 4 months.
I have a question from Paul. Hey, how you doing, Paul? Can Setti share his plans for the recent 10 million injection into the company?
Sure. Well, look, I mean, there's only so much that as a public company you can kind of disclose to select groups of people. So, I mean, when you kind of make disclosures, you got to make public disclosures, and that way all investors have an equal opportunity to kind of digest the information equally, right? Otherwise, you're sort of providing some information to some people and not equal information to all people. But I can tell you this, I mean, a lot of that money is going to be used for expansion, basically, whether it's expansion on the production line, whether it's expansion on the people that we want to build, bring on to help us and build the team, or whether it's expansion on our marketing efforts so that we can continue to communicate the right message to our consumers. So, for instance, I mean, one of the things that I absolutely want to do is really start driving down into how can we more efficiently target our consumers and relay the value proposition of this product to the right people at the right time in the right place. And I mean, those things require obviously the investment of some capital, some time, but it's about knowing what to do with it as opposed to just having it. Right. And I think that we've been able to show that, you know, when we raise the capital, we spend it efficiently. So one of the things that I absolutely want to do to start is start ramping up our production capability so that we can start meeting the anticipated demand, and then augment the marketing efforts, which have been extraordinarily well received in Ohio. I mean, I was talking to my distributor out there earlier this week, and he's like, he goes, it's crazy. He goes, I've been in this business for 30, 40 years. We're starting to get calls from states all over the country of people looking to carry this product. We haven't run any ads in those states. And yet, he goes, the buzz that you guys have been able to build out in a very short period of time, I mean, realistically, it's not like we're Altria or Philip Morris. Like nobody had ever heard of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So it's not like I had, you know, Marlboro and now I'm launching a new version of Marlboro. We didn't exist. And he goes, the number of calls that they've been getting from retailers, other wholesalers, distributors within the state, out of the state, he goes, I haven't seen that ever. And I think that obviously shows that we're doing something right. And when you kind of hit those notes, it's important to reflect on and really start understanding What is it about that messaging that's working? How can we make it better? And how can we get it to a broader audience of people? And that's what we're going to look to do.
I have another question from Drew. What's the timeline for TAAT reaching nationwide in America?
Listen, it's a good question. The U.S. is a very large, the U.S., while a country, I mean, you have all of the states, it almost operates like 50 countries within one country. So, it's important that you spend enough time in your initial states so that you can build the appropriate infrastructure to support the growth. Now, that being said, we'll run as fast as we humanly can to start commercializing throughout the US as quickly as possible. But you have to do it responsibly. Otherwise, if you don't, what ends up happening is you won't match your production with your demand, and then you'll have people that want it and you won't be able to fulfill. So we want to make sure that we take the appropriate steps to build out all of the infrastructure to make sure that when we put it in a market, that we have broad coverage, that we ensure that if we get consumers to switch from their cigarette to TAAT, they can buy it at any store, right? That when we put it in stores, that the retailers have the appropriate messaging so that when somebody comes in and asks, well, what's TAAT? They have something to say, right? That if they're running low on inventory, that we have the infrastructure in place that we can help them replenish quickly. So these are all the things that you want to start building out. And as you build out that scale, and that's why you start in a place like Ohio, as you start building out that scale, then when you look to add more and more states, it becomes easier and easier and easier. The hardest part is going from 0 to 1. Once you know how to go from 0 to 1, going from 1 to 2 is easier. Going from 2 to 3 is easier than that. Then going from 3 to 6 and 6 to 12 and 12 to 24. So, with any sort of journey, the hardest part is always the first step. And I think we've taken a giant leap over the last couple of months. And I think we'll continue to sort of run in stride.
Now there's a lot of people asking about Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Is that on your list of places and plans to eventually do business? Is that even a thought right now, or is it just strictly Ohio right now?
Look, right now it's strictly Ohio. Canada is definitely on the list. Now, the thing to note about Canada is that this product in Canada would be regulated under the Cannabis Act, despite the fact that it doesn't have any THC. Because it's regulated under the Cannabis Act, in Canada, I would only be able to sell it in licensed retailers, so places that would otherwise sell cannabis. I do think that there's a market for this product in Canada, but the place that I'm chasing is putting this product on the shelf next to where a smoker would go to buy a pack of cigarettes. So given the, let's call it, resources available to me, initially, I'm going to invest them in Ohio and look to grow in Ohio. And then we'll look at exploring appropriate sort of avenues and potential partnerships in Canada so that we can see whether it's a viable opportunity to also put it in Canada, given that it would have to be sold in licensed retailers. So I wouldn't be able to sell it at, say, a Circle K, but in the US I can. So if I want to get somebody in Canada that, say, would otherwise smoke Du Maurier or Belmont, I'd ideally want to put it in a convenience store next to Du Maurier in Belmont. The person smoking Du Maurier in Belmont really isn't going to Tokyo Smoke to look for a pack of cigarettes. It kind of doesn't fit, right? So again, when you're looking at channel where you want to sell your product, you want to make sure you're in the right channel to target the right consumer. And that's why, again, we kind of look at the US. So I'm not saying that we're not going to be in Canada, but I think we've got some work to do in the US before we sort of explore north of the border.
There's a question here from David. Most important question of how is the feedback from the client after the launch in Ohio? That means how much is the repeated client? Repeated client means fast selling of the cigar. A cigarette.
Right. Okay.
I think he means repeat customers. Do you have any numbers yet of repeat customers? I know it's really early, obviously.
No, I mean, not yet. I mean, we're still sort of filling up all of the pre-orders on, or working with our distributor to fill up all the pre-orders on the convenience stores that initially said they wanted to carry it. So again, you got to remember, you get it to the wholesaler, and then the wholesaler is going to break down the pallets, and they'll fill the appropriate orders for all the convenience stores, and they'll have delivery cycles, and they'll go and deliver it to the convenience store. And then typically the convenience store, they open up their delivery, and they'll merchandise it accordingly. So it's rolling out onto shelves as we speak. It's something that we're going to actively monitor over the next little while to see what the sell-through rate is, what the reorder rate is. And this is why we also want to do the appropriate consumer journey planning to understand, for somebody who smokes, pick a brand of cigarettes, what are the triggers that they're going to need in order to look at buying something like TAAT? When they buy it, what are the things that they're going to like about it? And how can we accentuate those things so that they continue buying it? And I think that that's something that evolves over time, just with any other CPG, right? But I do think that based on the initial feedback that we've gotten from consumers that have tried it, like real people who have gone in, the response has been overwhelmingly positive. I mean, I haven't had one person that came back and said, I would not buy this.
Everybody wants to try it. We have people from all over the world wanting to try it that are messaging you guys. Everybody's asking in the group chat here about uplisting. That's the big question here. Everyone wants to know, are you guys thinking about uplisting? The share price is close. Is that something that you guys are thinking about in 2021, or is that too soon?
Look, I mean, it's always something that I'm thinking about. And I mean, it's a good goal to have. So would we be looking at trying to put the pieces in place for something like that? Always, right? I think it's always something that I have in the forefront of my mind and that we're always working towards. I think it's an excellent goal to have. And much like all the other goals that we set, we usually try to hit them.
Well, you guys have had a good track record so far. You guys have been hitting every single goal, one after another, after another, after another.
So I think that's the best way I can answer that question.
You know what? I keep reminding everyone, guys, we found this deal pre-IPO at 41 cents.
Mm-hmm.
So to see them today at $3, I personally think, when you look at the stock and you look at the story that's unfolded here and the fact that they're just getting sales, and, Setti can only tell us so much, but they've got $150,000 of sales through the doors. I'm assuming that number is only going to grow. So as the sales numbers start to come in and they can really start to get robust, maybe we can see a, $4, $5, $6, $7 stock. And then at that point in time, it becomes very realistic for Setti to make the application to get uplisted at that point, because you have the share price, right? And you have the revenue to go along with it. So what, in my mind, the part that's mind-boggling for me, and I'm sure you probably sit there and late at night when you're lying in bed and you think about the fact that it's just Ohio, like, yeah, what the hell is it going to take care of the whole world, man? Like, that's going to be a lot of people. It's going to be a lot of hiring. It's going to be
it's a huge infrastructure you have to build, crazy, right? I mean, if you take a look at Philip Morris as an example. Now, Philip Morris has globally 86,000 employees.
Wow. And how much does TAAT have right now?
15.
That's what I'm saying. So when you sit there and you're like, okay, we're doing Ohio, and now we got people wanting it in Germany, Canada, UK, Australia, and we're just working on Ohio.
Listen,
from Ohio to global, it's like, it's a huge undertaking, but can we imagine as investors what that means for us? This is so early, guys. This product that people like, that's cheaper than what everybody else is getting, is about to potentially be all over the world. And we get a chance as investors to get in early. Mm-hmm. Like, we're just telling the story. People are just learning about TAAT.
Exactly. And look, I mean, I think you've covered a lot of early stage companies in your career. I think you'd probably agree it's relatively rare that a company that just filled its first order has worldwide demand waiting?
Like I said, I've never seen anything like it. I have investors all over the world.
Yeah.
One of them, his name is Ali. He's a big investor. He owns over, I can't, he has
So,
over 100,000 shares.
sure.
Okay. So he's a big investor in the company, really believes in it, and he's buying it all the time. And he said to me, he goes, Richard, I have investors, and he's from Switzerland. He's like, I have investors and friends all over the world telling me to buy TAAT. Bankers,
Mhm.
institutions
Mhm.
talking about TAAT.
Mhm. Look, I mean, I've had sort of calls with bankers in a fair amount of countries, right? And in the beginning, it's okay. This is a nice story. All right, tell me a little bit more about it. I mean, I told everybody that, at least on your sort of channel, I sort of said the story in various iterations a few times. And you kind of tell it again for the first time, and they're like, "That can't be right. I mean, what am I missing? I don't think you're missing anything. Like, this can't be real." Like, no, it's real, right? And you want to know what part of the issue is sometimes? I mean, when you take a look at a lot of, let's call it junior companies or companies in the microcap space, it's rare you'll see like a CPG company like this that is going after tobacco. I mean, there really hasn't been an opportunity to invest in a tobacco competitor at the junior level. I can't even remember. It would have been decades, if not more, because Juul wasn't public, right? Juul was technically, Juul still is private. It's a third of it's owned by Altria. I mean, if you want to play Juul, you got to buy Altria. But having the ability to invest in something like this, and kind of getting in at the ground floor, I think is an interesting opportunity. The market itself is staggeringly large.
Yeah.
You know what it is? Sometimes it becomes like hard to quantify. Like $1 trillion is a lot of money
Yes.
annually.
Yes.
That's the market for tobacco. Like, it's extraordinarily large.
And
So
do you guys have any competition at all? Like, is there anybody doing what you're doing right now for this market share?
look, you've got, how do I put it? There's other types of categories, but they don't really compete. They kind of act as a halo category. So you've got other hemp cigarettes as an example. I don't think there's another real. There might be a couple of little public ones too, but the vast majority of them are private. But again, rolling a hemp cigarette, I think there's a market for that. But for somebody who's a smoker of a Marlboro, a Camel, or pick a cigarette brand, you should have a hemp cigarette. It's going to taste like you're smoking a joint. And I've kind of used this example before, right? Where it's okay, looks like a cigarette. It'd be like, say you want a beer and I bring you a glass of wine and shrug my shoulder and say, well, it's all alcohol, so what does it matter? Well, it matters.
Of course it matters, yeah.
Right? I wanted a beer and you brought me a glass of wine.
That's
So
right.
it's the same kind of thing here. And I mean, that's why, when we went out and got the patent, it was so important, because when we discovered how to actually do this and do it at scale, I mean, that's a real powerful IP.
Absolutely.
Nobody's going to be able to replicate it because of the patents that we have and the trade secrets. I mean, I think that's almost undervalued if I had to really think about it, because it gives us the opportunity to use a different biomass and create an experience for a smoker that I think that they're going to enjoy better. Part of the challenge on the tobacco side is that they're almost fixated on using tobacco. And therefore you have to keep delivering nicotine. For us, being able to deliver a far superior molecule in a product that's going to taste exactly like a cigarette at a price point that's going to be cheaper, so I can give you something that isn't addictive. And again, I think I've said this 100 times, right? But the value proposition really is about giving you that freedom to choose. And I think for a lot of smokers, when they understand that, the choice almost makes itself. So I can save you money, I can give you the freedom to choose, and it's going to taste better than a cigarette. It's up to you, really, if you want to try it.
I think this is a game changer. We said it since day one. You've proven it already, and now you guys are actually selling in stores. Everyone keeps asking next state. Is there a next logical state? Will it be one state? Will it be a few states? Or will it be one state after another? Can you tell us that? Can you give us any idea of like?
Do I have the next states? Yes. Am I going to tell you what they are? No. Look, I
Okay.
mean, I can't.
Let me ask you a question. So
At a certain point, you can only telegraph so much, right? I'm not going to tell you exactly what I'm going to do before I do it. I mean, you still got competitors or people that are trying to compete that watch, right? If I tell you exactly what I'm going to do before I'm going to do it, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for us as a company, right?
Okay, you touched on it. There's people that are trying to compete. So there was a rumor in our trading club that you guys are selling. Someone's like, they're selling.
Selling
the company.
To who?
It's rumor. I'm just telling you, there was a rumor that you guys were selling, and it spreads like wildfire. Taat's selling, right? You know how it is. Like,
yeah.
It's too early in the game for that, right? Why would you sell now? I mean, we're still a baby market cap.
Yeah, I think we've got some room to grow first. If somebody were to come and want to buy, you have a kind of fiduciary duty to the shareholders. I mean, you probably entertain it, but it would have to be one hell of an offer for me to say or recommend to the board that we would take it. I think the opportunity in front of us is, again, pretty big, and we've only sold on order yet. We barely, like, the gun's barely fired.
The gun's barely fired. There's a question here from Paul. Could any patent be denied?
I think any patent could technically be denied, but usually what you do before you file a patent is do a pretty robust search to see whether anybody has anything that could potentially compete or that you would infringe on. So before we filed for patent, we went through that exercise with our legal team, and based on their opinion, it came back saying, no, I don't think anybody's really ever thought of it this way. There's nothing that they've seen. And when you file for it, you basically get that date. So long as nobody's filed prior, and then that's the whole process. So then it goes to the patent office, and they start scrubbing through in great detail to see whether there's anything that might potentially infringe. But when we sort of had our lawyers look at it first, I mean, they looked. I mean, they spent a fair amount of time looking at it too. They didn't see anything that that would really come close to what it is that we're doing.
So if anyone has any other questions, please let us know. We are sitting here with Setti Coscarella, the CEO of TAAT Lifestyle and Wellness, a company that we spoke to and talked to since day one of this new IPO, and it's been a huge success. Guys, remember, Rich TV Live is strictly for education and entertainment purposes. Always do your due diligence and always do your research before you invest in anything we discuss here on our show. Always consult a financial advisor before you invest in anything. If you consult a financial advisor, chances are they're going to say, oh, that company sounds pretty interesting. There isn't many out there like it. And that's what makes it interesting for me as an investor and someone who's talking about stocks every day and is just in love with the stock market. I just love the fact that you guys are unique. There isn't 100 companies like you. There isn't even 10 companies like you. There isn't even 5 companies like you. That's the thing that I find very unique. You guys are kind of in a league of your own. You're very unique. There's so many other sectors that are kind of like, the electric vehicle sectors, like if Tesla's hot, electric vehicles are hot. If plant-based foods are hot, that's the flavor of the day. We just had a run with psychedelic stocks. But with you guys, it's like, it's different because there's really like, there's no competition really. And you're almost kind of recession proof because people are going to always be smoking, right? Mm-hmm. And people are looking for an alternative and a way to quit smoking. I think that that's a nice angle that you guys have. Let's talk about that angle because I think that that's the angle that can make this really big, right? To get it on the shelves and get people trying it. The fact that it's not just a cigarette, the fact that it's different, the fact that
what it is, Rich? You're absolutely right. This is from a smokable product. It is actually a true recreational product. You can have it when you want, where you want, and if you want it, have it. You don't have it. And cigarettes or vapes can't do that. They rely on addiction to try to keep selling you something. But if I can replicate all of it and satiate that craving you would otherwise have, why wouldn't you prefer having the power to choose versus not?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fantastic that you're giving people the opportunity to do something that could be healthier for them, that could help them quit smoking altogether. I like the fact that you really stress you're not trying to make people smokers. You're trying to convert a smoker that's addicted to nicotine and tobacco and get them to try a healthier alternative with no nicotine and no tobacco. That's the part that I think is very unique, because it reminds me kind of like the patch. You know, everyone that was a smoker tried the patch.
Or the gums or the sprays or the lozenges or yeah.
And have you looked into how big of an industry that is alone? Like the alternative cigarette, the quitting cigarette industry. Is there a statistic on that? Because this is kind of taking a little bit of both, right? You're competing with all the cigarettes on the shelves, but you're also competing with the patch now, and with those, you know, alternatives to smoking and those quit smoking alternatives. This becomes kind of like a quasi cigarette where it's a cigarette, but it's also an alternative to a cigarette. Mm-hmm. That's interesting for marketing too, because it gives you more options, right? It gives you a different angle.
Look, I mean, again, I think the value proposition for the product is broad and strong at the same time. And it's, I know it sounds like you're picking off a whole bunch of these words, but I mean, it's specific too, because you've got a very defined market that you know has a big pain point, that is looking for alternatives that none of them really hit. I mean, if you looked at the numbers right now in the US, and again, this goes back to a lot of the work that I had done before, like the vast majority of smokers have tried alternatives. And yet the number of smokers outweighs the number of vapors 20-1.
Wow.
So if they've all tried vaping, yet they're all still smoking, tells you two things. One, they're open to an alternative. Two, the ones in the market aren't hitting it for them.
That's right.
So you have a captive audience of people that are looking for something better. Nothing in the market currently exists because they keep going back to smoking a cigarette. So here's something completely different. Try this. And even our URL, right? Try TAAT has the call to action embedded in it. And I think, you know, even when I kind of look at positioning it as a whole, right? I mean, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. Like, if you're not a smoker, I suggest you don't start. And if you do smoke, you should probably quit. And if that doesn't work, then maybe you should try TAAT, because I think it will.
The community is asking for an online store. You're smiling. I think we got a smart community here. Because I was just thinking, like, oh my God, how do you go worldwide? Amazon, right? Amazon's worldwide. How? Because it's online and they have online store and they've just have global dominance and they're just taking over the world. And I'm sitting here thinking, maybe you guys could one day have an online store. Then you could be global overnight, right? The community is asking. The community is asking.
What can I tell you, Rich, other than stay tuned?
Oh, here's a good question from Stacy. Does TAAT foresee paying a dividend per share in the future?
You know what? That is an excellent question. So when you take a look at practically every tobacco company basically trades on a dividend yield. Okay? They all pay a dividend. Now, the reason they all pay a dividend is because the tobacco industry is effectively in equilibrium. It's a war of attrition. There's not a whole lot of market share left to gain. You know, when you look at all of the different companies, you gain 1%, you lose 1%, but effectively everybody's flat. So when you kind of cease being a growth company, you become a utility. Tobacco's basically a utility. And when you're a utility, especially with the cash that they generate, without any other thing to sort of spend it on from a growth standpoint, you pay it back to shareholders, and that's why strategically it makes sense to pay a dividend. Us, on the other hand, are just starting. All the capital that we generate, we're going to reinvest into growth. For me to go and start paying a dividend would mean that I don't have anything else to spend the money on to create value, so I'll give it back to the shareholders. I think we're a ways away from something like that because there's a lot of capital appreciation I would rather chase at this point than return of capital to shareholders. So once you kind of reach a certain point, and I think that's many years down the road, and you hit your sort of natural share and you're kind of holding there, the cash that you generate, yeah, you might look at paying a dividend at that point. But otherwise, until then, it's a complete reinvestment game into the business to continue growing the equity of the company.
This has been a very exciting time. If you guys have any other final questions, please let us know. We are live with Setti Coscarella, the CEO of TAAT Lifestyle and Wellness. TAAT is the symbol in Canada, TOBAF in America, 2TP2 in Frankfurt, Germany. I know that we have investors all over the world that are watching. We've got investors all over the world that are messaging. We've got investors all over the world that are interested in this company. Is there a message you want to deliver before we say goodbye to everyone? It's late. It's getting late on the East Coast, West Coast, all over the world. Any message you want to deliver, everyone? You got news. There's a lot of good things happening. Guys, the stock's up from 41 cents to $3, and they just had their first check, come in for sales. So it's pretty exciting. We're sitting with the man himself, and I think you've done a great job, Setti. So congratulations on everything so far.
Thanks, Rich.
And I really hope that you continue to achieve all of your goals for 2021 for yourself and for all the shareholders. And if you guys like the video, smash the like button. It allows the video to go viral so more people can see it. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe so that next time we go live with Setti, you get right away, you get access to the video. And make sure that you comment on the videos so it allows us to learn more about what your questions are so that we can go back to Setti and say, hey, Setti, there's this question, there's that question. And then we come up with these videos because we want to be transparent. And I know Setti wants to be transparent. And I feel like TAAT is one of the most transparent companies out there. And I think that that's part of your marketing and your strategy. There was a question here. Are you looking to use influencers for your marketing? Is that something you're going to look to do even maybe at even a higher scale, like celebrity influencers potentially? Because this is the type of brand I think, like if you got a celebrity influencer to Jake Paul, Logan Paul, smoking these cigarettes, everybody would be, something like that, Mike Tyson, who knows?
He's got his own company.
I know he's got Mike Tyson Ranch and he's doing good for himself. And that's the thing is we're in a crazy world right now going to 2021. We got COVID-19. We got so many crazy stories. And TAAT's been such a great feel-good story, for investors. It's very rare where you see a company hit on every single target. And congratulations on everything you've done in like we said, like warp speed record 4 months.
Listen, I appreciate it all. To quickly answer that question, yes, influencers is something that we would potentially look at. I think in general, whenever you look at using influencers, there needs to be an authentic relationship between the brand and the influencer. Otherwise, it comes off as like a commercial and then nobody cares, right? So it's important to kind of work with people who see the brand as something that can fit into their life. And when it does, I think the relationship between brand and influencer becomes a lot more authentic, especially for the audience the influencer is serving. So that's something that when we do look going down that road, how we would look to engage with them. Outside of that, I wanted to thank you again for helping us tell the story to your community. On behalf of everyone at TAAT, I wanted to wish you and all of your viewers a wonderful holiday season and Merry Christmas. And I'm sure that we'll be back in the new year to kind of share some more exciting developments with your audience and you.
That's great. Well, thank you very much. And I wish you and Tat and everybody in your family a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I want to wish all the audience a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Hope you guys all have a very healthy and wealthy holidays. And let's all have a very wealthy and healthy 2021 and beyond. We're here with the CEO of TAAT Lifestyle and Wellness. Thank you for your time today, Setti. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you guys for watching. If you're not winning, you're not watching. We brought you TAAT first. It's true. If you're not winning, you're not watching. We bring you the winners and we bring them to you. CEO, class act, and a man who's done an amazing job, Setti Coscarella. Thank you for joining us and being so transparent and taking your time late night. And I wish you all the best of luck. And thank you for joining us. And thank